Hey everybody, it's Cave Cat again with another episode of Cave Cat's movie and TV reviews to top off the new year. So, Happy New Year everyone! Now on to episode 11 of the series, where I get to talk about a show that I've been wanting to talk about ever since I first started the series. I'm fairly certain that there's a lot of people out there that are into Digimon, which first started out as a digital pet sensation, much like the Gigapets or even the Tamagotchis back in the 90s, except it had its origins in Japan, much like the Tamagotchis did. Then in 1999, it got adapted into a Japanese manga and especially an anime series that became immensely popular. And unlike Pokemon, where each season had Ash and his friends going to a different region to continue their search for more brand new Pokemon, each season of Digimon would focus on a different group of Digidestined children, sometimes in a different continuity from the season before it. In this case, we are taking a look at the fourth season of Digimon, which was known as Digimon Frontier in the original Japanese version. Digimon Frontier first aired in Japan in April of 2002 before airing in America in September of 2002 until ending in July of 2003. And like the previous three seasons before it, it also focuses on a group of Digidestined children who have also been summoned to the digital world to try and save it from a great evil that plagues it, all while the children themselves end up learning lessons and having to deal with their own hardships prior to arriving in the digital world. However, unlike the previous three seasons, where the Digidestined children had their own Digimon partners, the Digidestined in the fourth season didn't have Digimon partners, instead being granted the power to turn into Digimon themselves, with the use of special statues called spirits that correspond with a certain element that befits each of the children. So anyway, this season focuses on 5 children named Takuya Kanbara, Koji Minamoto, Tommy Hime, Zoe Orimato, and JP Shibayama, who've been summoned to the digital world, but in a much different fashion than the previous 3 seasons. Instead of getting whisked away to the digital world via a portal appearing in the sky, the Season 4 Digidestined board a train that takes them to the digital world, where the train turns into a Digimon called a Trailmon. From what I recall, a lot of people seem to be rather split on the season. A lot of people liked it because of the concept of the Digidestined children turning into Digimon rather than having their own Digimon partners, while other people didn't like it because they thought the Digidestined turning into Digimon destroyed the whole purpose of the Digimon series, as well as thinking that the characters for that season were rather flat and uninteresting. However, I beg to differ on that, because I like the idea of the Digidestined being granted the ability to turn into Digimon as opposed to having their own Digimon partners. So it's good that the producers were able to get some leeway with what they had to work with and actually break tradition. And also like the previous 3 seasons, this season was also dubbed in North America. But unlike the previous 3 seasons, it didn't air on Fox Kids, because this was around the time that the Fox Kids block had been retired and was replaced with the Fox Box. Instead, it aired in syndication, and it even aired on UPN at one point, except the advertising for it was very subpar compared to that of the previous seasons, kinda similar to what happened when the Dilbert cartoon was paired with Shasta McNasty, when both shows also aired on UPN at the time. And also, unlike the previous 3 seasons, the 4th season of Digimon was the very first season to not have the Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon are the champions theme song. Instead, in a similar vein to when Pokemon would change their theme song each season, Digimon Frontier had a different theme song that went, "Look to the past as we head for the future to reclaim the digital world." I have to admit that's a pretty nice change of pace compared to the previous 3 seasons, even paving the way for when the following seasons, like Digimon Data Squad and Digimon Fusion, would also have their own theme songs as well. Even though quite a lot of people out there complain about the characters not being as good as the Digidestined from the first 2 seasons, or even the Tamers from the 3rd season, I, among other people, actually like the Digidestined from the 4th season. Contrary to popular belief, I think that the characters from the 4th season of Digimon are actually pretty well done representations of the archetypes of how you would expect the Digidestined children to act. Takuya is the brash and cocky leader of the main group, a lot like most of the previous goggle-headed leaders, with Takato from the 3rd season being a mild exception, as well as being impulsive and immature. In fact, it's his impulsiveness and immaturity that ends up getting called out in episode 21 of the series, and almost gets everyone killed, but we'll get to that a little later. Koji is the more aloof and stubborn, yet humble and practical one of the group, starting out as a distant loner, but eventually became a permanent member of the group. Of course, we later learned that his attitude stems from the fact that his parents are divorced, with Koji living with his father while his brother Koichi Kimura, whom we'll get to a little later, lives with their mother. But anyway, on to the rest of the characters. Tommy is the youngest of the main group who has a tendency to get rather emotional and burst into tears whenever he gets faced with a problem that seems too much for him. We later find out that the reason for this is because his parents spoil him, while his older brother, named Yutaka in the English dub, is more practical and reasonable to Tommy than his parents are, which ended up frustrating Tommy because he didn't understand. Zoe is the only female member of the main group who lived in Italy before moving to Japan, so because of that she is revealed to be rather fluent in speaking Italian. We find out later on that after she moved, she felt like that she didn't fit in with the rest of her peers, which caused everyone else around her to regard her as being a stuck-up snob who felt that she was better than everyone else. JP is the more boisterous and insecure of the group, with an unrequited crush on Zoe. Later on, we learned that he tried to get people to be friends with him by giving them candy bars and performing magic tricks for them, but it never worked out for him. Here's another thing. At the start of the season, there were 5 kids, until halfway through when we're introduced to Koji's older brother, Koichi, who is basically more soft-spoken and withdrawn than Koji is, though he isn't always like this. The reason for this is because he was anxious to meet his brother Koji after hearing about him from his dying grandmother, but while trying to catch up to him at the train station, he ended up tripping and falling down the stairs. Once that happened, he was somehow transported to the digital world where he met with Cherubimon, one of the main villains of the series, who turned him into Duskmon, the corrupted spirit of darkness. And for the side characters, there's also Bokomon, who is basically the guide to the Digidestined with a near encyclopedic knowledge of everything in the digital world thanks to his trusty book. And Neimon, who's the more dim-witted, clumsy, and cowardly of the two, prone to doing and saying rather stupid things, which of course leads to Bokomon punching him by pulling his pants and snapping them, which is always pretty good for some comedy to lighten the mood. You know, now that I think about it, I feel that Bokomon and Neimon might actually be the successors to Aristotle and Socrates, respectively, from Adventures from the Book of Virtues, or even Pinky and the Brain, being that all 3 pairs consist of a shorter character who is rather intelligent yet short-tempered, and a taller character who tends to be rather dim-witted and prone to acting rather stupid. There's lots of other characters as well, but trying to list them all would take up the majority of this review, and it's best that I don't do that. So anyway, as for my thoughts on the show, it's actually a very good show and a formidable installment in the Digimon series, even in spite of it deviating slightly from the normal seasons. Like all of the other seasons, it has a pretty good balance of action, comedy, heart, and emotion to it. In fact, speaking of emotion, there's actually an episode where the Digidestined find themselves facing off against Duskmon, who turned out to be the toughest opponent that the gang has ever faced off against, proving himself to be no pushover. As I mentioned earlier, Takuya impulsively comes up with a plan that will supposedly beat Duskmon, only for Koji to call him out for not realizing how dangerous and serious the situation really is, also rightfully pointing out that it's not just a game that you can walk away from when things go wrong, and if they even make one little slip up, then it's all over for them. Yeah, you can really tell just how serious that conversation was, because the writers really pulled no punches in showing just how tense and gut-wrenching it was between Takuya and Koji. And Koji ends up getting proven right when Takuya's plan has no effect against Duskmon, but fortunately they don't die. But anyway, no more spoilers after this, because I'm sure that you'll figure it out for yourself if you watch the show for yourselves. Judging by my overall thoughts on the show, you can all guess what this means. Digimon Frontier without a doubt gets 9 stars from me. I'm sorry that this review is a little bit longer than all my other reviews, but there was just so much for me to talk about the show that I just couldn't hold it all in. But even though Digimon Frontier was a little bit different from all the other seasons of Digimon, I'm very proud to have watched every single episode of this season from beginning to end. With all that's been said and done, that does it for this episode of Cave Cat's movie and TV reviews. What did you think of Digimon Frontier? Comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos coming your way for the new year. So until next time, later!